It's clear to me that you're a remorseless killer. You strangled your wife, you murdered her.
Cops sometimes break the very laws they are sworn to protect, thinking that they will get away with it. But sometimes, karma catches up and they face justice in court. Today we'll be looking at cases where corrupt officers got swift karma in the courtroom.
And he used his badge, and he used his position to satisfy his own desires. He is a cop who turned into a killer.
Starting off with ex-officer Daniel Howard, who was convicted for his wife for 2 years. Daniel claimed it was a suicide, but finally, after an investigation, he was found guilty and brought to trial.
Count 1 is the defendant Daniel C. Howard guilty or not guilty of domestic battery? Guilty. Count 2 is the defendant Daniel C. Howard guilty or not guilty of murder in the first degree? Not guilty. Is the defendant Daniel Howard guilty or not guilty of second-degree murder? Guilty.
Counsel, I'm proposing a sentencing date of May 23rd at 1:30 p.m. That's available. I will order a PSI or a pre-sentence investigation. Mr. Howard, I'll have you talk with your attorney about that. You have the right to participate or not participate in that. You continue to have the right to remain silent. Mr. Howard is remanded into custody. I'll see everyone back May 23rd at 1:30 for sentencing. We will be in recess.
Daniel mercilessly strangled Kendi out of jealousy. Kendi's daughter delivered an emotional statement in the courtroom, leaving a lasting impact.
I struggle with guilt and I struggle with not knowing. I wish I could have convinced her to stay with me instead of going home that night. The fear on her face and in her voice when she told me about how she woke up with him standing over her will never leave me. Nothing will fill the hole he has created. Nothing can fix or undo what he has done. But her name can be free. The thought that he can no longer have control over her name, her memory, and her spirit gives me a sense of peace.
Despite all the proof being against him, Daniel continued to plead innocence, but the judge made sure to take him to the cleaners.
I'm not that monster, I assure you, that people are portraying me to be.
But what we know, beyond a reasonable doubt, is that you strangled your wife, you murdered her, and then you staged her body in the bathtub, shot her through the mouth, and tried to pass this off as a suicide. That's proven beyond a reasonable doubt. In horrible crimes like this, everybody wants to know why. And often we don't know why, and I can't get inside your brain, but the pretty clear evidence, I agree with the state, is that this was due to jealousy, greed, pride, anger, revenge, some combination of that.
While committing a murder was evil enough, Howard even went on to portray it as a suicide, further proving just how big of a monster he is. It is tough to think that at some point he was a law enforcement officer.
You didn't just, when you killed Kendi, you didn't just kill your wife. You killed a mother, you killed a grandmother, you killed a sister, a daughter, a worker, somebody who brought a lot of life and light to those around her and those she touched. And you snuffed that out because of your own pride, greed, and anger. Despite your efforts at the time to appear emotional and sad and distraught, it's clear to me that you're a remorseless killer. And I don't say that lightly. I don't say that lightly at all because we don't like to think that anybody would be like that. The lack of remorse, the lack of caring, and just the callous disregard that you had for Kendi and how her death affected those around her. You had these same thoughts. You were talking about allowing people to live through your own self-control and restraint, understanding why people would kill their, quote, old ladies and go to prison. And so you're 58 years old. I don't see a lot of rehabilitation, sadly, in your future. Maybe, I mean, perhaps, but that's not a significant mitigating factor in sentencing you.
The disgusting criminal maintained a straight demeanor, showing no remorse for his actions, while the judge continued to grill him.
But there is a severe punishment for your wife, and there's no sort of mitigation because the marriage is on the rocks, or the wife was unfaithful, or things like that. There's absolutely no justification here for your wife, and I think it's important that the sentence sends that message as well. I know beyond a reasonable doubt is that you strangled or asphyxiated your wife. You staged her to be found as if it were suicide. It's an outrageously egregious murder. And of course, all murder is, but this is particularly heinous in my view, having sat through the trial and seen all the evidence.
Soon after, the judge announced the sentence, and from the very beginning, it was clear what fate awaited this brutal individual.
The nature and gravity of the offense standing alone is sufficient to justify a fixed life sentence, and that is what I'm going to impose here. I think Kendi's family deserves to have that closure. The crime is so egregious that I don't think you should be released at any point in the future. And I don't impose that lightly. I have thought long and hard about this, considered all the evidence, considered aggravation and mitigation. There's just so little mitigation here. There's just really none.
The judge remained calm, measured, and compassionate throughout the proceeding. Finally, he read the sentence, providing a sense of justice and comfort to Kendi's family.
You find that a fixed life sentence is appropriate for the count of second degree. On the domestic violence charge, I'll impose 10-year sentence and run it concurrent. I didn't even speak about that. I mean, really, I'm not. I don't mean to give that charge short shrift. The jury found that you were violent and abusive to your wife as well. It's just that, frankly, the killing alone subsumes it all, in my view. And so I'm running that. The domestic violence charge of 10 years will run concurrent with your life sentence.
Howard was sentenced to life with no possibility of parole. It is relieving to know that the troubled man would be spending the rest of his life behind bars. While this dirty cop was taken to the cleaners in the courtroom, this next cop did the unthinkable and was rightly sentenced.
And he used his badge and he used his position to satisfy his own desires. He is a cop who turned into
Former Doralville police officer Miles Bryant was accused of rape and murdering 16-year-old Susanna Morales. The disturbing case was tough to establish, but after 7 months after her mysterious death, the officer was charged and ultimately on trial.
He was supposed to serve and protect. Worked as a police officer for the City of Doralville Police Department. Somebody we should hold to a higher standard because of his role in enforcing the law. But he didn't do any of those things. Instead, he abused the law. and he used his badge, and he used his position to satisfy his own sexual desires. He is a cop who turned into a killer. His victim, 16-year-old Susana Morales. Susana was in high school.
The 16-year-old was headed home when she was pulled over by this criminal cop. He kidnapped her and ended up murdering her. He then returned to his job in less than 24 hours after committing this heinous act, as Susana's family kept searching for her.
And Susana Morales, on the night of July 26, 2022, her precious life ended because of the defendant's desire to satisfy his own desires. 196 days of no information. 4,704 hours of absolutely no idea where their daughter was, where their sister was. 282,240 minutes. A man named Matthew Gilbert was driving down Highway 316 and pulled off on the side of Highway 316. He saw this trail that is right off the side of Highway 316. At that time, it was February, it was winter, there were no leaves on the trees, and it was pretty obvious like this. But in the summertime, you'll see that this area here is completely wooded.
Matthew Gilbert was off-roading when he discovered Susana's remains. This crucial discovery set the stage for identifying and capturing the real suspect.
In the middle of the woods, on that day, Mr. Gilbert stumbled across human remains. And at that moment, he stopped. You'll hear from him. Still with the black nail polish she had painted on him. She had hair that was dark on the top, with blonde hair on the bottom. They found her hair still there. And then hear very importantly that she was naked. Her body was left there in the woods. They found absolutely not one shred of any fiber, any clothing, any socks, any pants, any shirt, any undergarments.
Despite her body being found in the woods, there was no evidence that would link the to Officer Miles. But just a day later, things took a turn for the worse for the killer cop.
The first piece of evidence was found the next day, February 7th of 2023. When the Grand County Police Department, which appears that that night, they found her body very late in the day. And it became dark very quickly in February. So they secured the scene, they collected what they could, left police officers there to secure the scene, came back the next morning to continue. They located this. This is a Glock 19 9mm handgun, and underneath the barrel is an attached flashlight on this weapon. The gun in the woods near this girl's body. And so they wanted to know who it belonged to. And they found that it was registered to the defendant, Miles Bryant. So they began to do a little more looking. How could his gun end up out there? What they found, and what you hear, is that the following morning after she went missing, July 27th of 2022, the defendant called the Winter County Police Department to report that gun stolen. He claimed
Miles's weapon was found at the crime scene, providing undeniable proof of his involvement in the horrific crime. The prosecutor relentlessly grilled him, emphasizing the cruelty and disgrace of his action.
That less than 24 hours after the defendant kidnapped and murdered Susana Morales, he was back on shift, working as a Doraville Police Department officer. Went into a quick coincidence that his phones are there at the scene with her, that his gun is found at the scene. This is what you're going to hear from his own mouth. And then you're going to hear that Detective Carter asked him repeatedly, was it an accident? Did she fall on her head? No. I don't have anything to do with this. She didn't. Was it an overdose? Did she take something? No. It wasn't any of those things. It wasn't any accident. It wasn't anything. That's what you're going to hear from his own mouth. To come back and find the defendant guilty of malice murder, guilty of felony murder, guilty of kidnapping, guilty of criminal attempt to commit rape, and guilty of false report of crime.
Well, as the trial progressed, things were about to go from bad to worse as the prosecutor interrogated an inmate who was with the defendant in prison. And what he revealed will leave you truly shocked.
Did you get to know him?
I wouldn't say I got to know him, but I mean, I talked to him
Okay. How regularly would you talk to him?
every day.
And before we get into the stuff that we're going to talk about, just generally, what kind of stuff would y'all talk about?
Anything, sports, what we did on the street, what we're going to do whenever we get out, if we get out.
What conversation did you have with him about some of the details of what was contained in the discovery?
I don't think I'm not going to get charged for this. They ain't got nothing against me. There's no. It says right here plain. He says it says right here plain. There's no blood, no nothing. They can't. They ain't got nothing against me.
So did he indicate to you that he was not going to be linked to the young girl's body because there was no blood or semen on her?
Yes.
Is that what he said?
He said there's no way this case can be put on me. It doesn't show that I was anywhere around her. It doesn't show no blood, no semen, no nothing.
Okay.
At this point, Brian seems guilty as hell, and the inmate was about to expose this nasty criminal even more.
This conversation brought up one time. He said, someone could get the death penalty for something like this. I said, no, you gotta do something more brutal than that. And he said, well, so far they only got me charged with this one. He said, so far I'm only charged with one.
After plenty of hearings, the jury finally reached its verdict, and you will be satisfied that justice was served.
State of Georgia versus Miles Bryant. Indictment number 24B00156-4. Count 1, malice murder. We, the jury, found the defendant guilty. Count 2, felony murder. We, the jury, find the defendant guilty. Count 3, kidnapping. We, the jury, find the defendant guilty. Count 4, criminal attempt to commit rape. We, the jury, find the defendant not guilty. Count 5, false report of a crime. We, the jury, find the defendant guilty. Signed June 12th, 2024 by the foreperson. Anything from the state or the defense?
Your Honor, nothing on behalf of the state.
We would ask that the jury be polled, please, ma'am.
Okay.
The ex-police officer was found guilty of every charge against him instead of just rape. That due to lack of evidence, as the body was found 7 months later. It is even difficult to comprehend how a law enforcement officer would even do something like this.
Mr. Bryant, you now have been convicted of 3 felonies. I want to inform you, you have a right to seek post-judgment relief from your felony convictions by either filing a direct appeal to a higher appellate court or to file a motion for a new trial. You have 30 days from the date I sign and file your sentence with the clerk of court to file a motion for new trial to any and all of the felony charges. Ms. Drake, are you going to file a motion for new trial?
Yes, ma'am, and I did discuss that with my client about that process.
Okay. You also have 4 years from the date of your sentence, from the date your sentence is final, to file a habeas corpus petition on the felonies. I'm going to appoint you an appellate lawyer to handle your case.
Susanna's family must have felt some relief after the jury's verdict. Just days later, the judge called the suspect back for sentencing, delivering yet another powerful and just decision.
Mr. Bryant, do you want to say anything?
Yes, ma'am.
Would you like to say anything?
Yes,
Go ahead.
No, you can speak from there.
I just want to apologize to everybody and to the victim's family. Sorry, that's it.
That's it. Okay. Mr. Bryant, on count 1, malice, I sentence you to life without the possibility of parole. Count 2 and count 3, I believe, vacate as operation of law. Count 5, I sentence you to 12 months, which is the maximum I can, consecutive to your life without the possibility of parole. Thank you. You may go with the deputies.
Bryant rightfully got life in prison, and moments after this, Susanna's family was allowed to have some last words in the courtroom.
Susanna was my little sister. First of all, I just wanted to thank everybody for working on this case. All we ever wanted was justice for what happened to her. So I want to thank you for that. I'm sorry.
There's nothing to be sorry about.
I just ask that he receives the maximum sentence because no family, no mother, no father, no one deserves to go through this. No one deserves to go through what he went through all these years. These 2 years, I'm sorry.
Jasmine, I'm so sorry you lost your sister. I'm so sorry. You lost your sister.
It was heartbreaking to witness as Susanna's sister broke down in tears. The judge showed remarkable compassion, listening to her with full attention, a rare and touching moment in the courtroom.
I just wanted to let you know what our family went through. Seeing my mom devastated every single day, not knowing what could happen to my sister, was very, very disappointing, devastating. Seeing my mom not eat, not be able to sleep. Seeing my mom not wanting to cover herself, thinking that she could be somewhere lost, thinking the worst as the days pass. It's very, very hard not to think anything positive.
The family endured immense pain and trauma because of this predator, and while the verdict may bring some sense of justice, nothing can restore the happiness that was cruelly taken from them.
I had a different theory what could have happened to her. Maybe she got kidnapped. We didn't know anything. Every day was a new series in our mind, like a movie going through our heads. What was happening? What was she going through? Is she being held? Is she being forced to do something? I couldn't even have intimacy with my husband, thinking that she could have been being raped during that time. Seeing my mom lose weight that she never lost over years. She lost weight over 25 pounds during not knowing.
Bryant was sentenced to life and he continues to be in jail today. But even this seems less for the demon. Justice was served. Well, that brings us to the end of this video. Today we witness cases where corrupt and murderous police officers face instant karma in the courtroom. These criminals were sentenced to life with the judge ensuring that they would never see freedom again. It is shocking to think that they once served as law enforcement, but in the end, justice prevailed. If you agree, please support us by liking this video. Also, if you enjoyed this video, watch the moments where these evil parents were sent to prison.
And if they don't, then it's their fault that the child is acting like us, which is what he's doing.